What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer, Logan Landers, and join me here today to talk about the NFL legend, Tommy Nobis, former linebacker by way of the Atlanta Falcons. My guy from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, say what's up to the people on this Friday afternoon, and let them know what you found out, learning more and doing your research about Mr. Falcon you see here on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tommy Nobis, man. This is another UT guy, University of Texas alumni. Here we're talking about today, and obviously, like you said, he got picked up by the Atlanta Falcons, and we'll get more into that. But yeah, man, the guy was known as Mr. Falcon. That's if you're going to be of a team and they're calling Mr. Falcon, that's a pretty good honor.
You're doing something right.
Absolutely. And Logan, this guy was really interesting to me. He was a linebacker, like you mentioned. But he also was a guard on the offensive line for University of Texas. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first Iron Men to actually play in college football. He played both sides of the ball for his entire college career, Logan.
Which is crazy.
He played linebacker and guard the entire way. And that's a hard damn thing to do, especially in a violent sport like football. When you look at the draft, he was the first overall selection in '66 by the NFL. But then you look at the AFL side, and he was the 5th pick in the first round. It's a pretty decent sized guy, 6'2", 240. For a linebacker, that's great. I don't know so much as necessarily at the guard position on the offensive line, but back in those days, Logan, they weren't as big as they are now.
No, they weren't 300-pound monsters back, and they weren't pushing 350.
So like 240 was probably their 300 back then.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but the guy did great. I mean, he went on to win Rookie of the Year in '66. He did get the national championship in '63. And then obviously one of the biggest things I like about him is that what I like about the situation is that University of Texas did come out and actually retire his number 60 jersey, rightfully so, because this guy deserved to have his jersey number retired. A lot of Hall of Fames this guy is in. Georgia Hall of Fame, Texas Hall of Fame, Atlanta Hall of Fame. I mean, he's definitely made his rounds for sure. When you look at his career for what he's done in terms of statistics, he had 1,688 tackles. He had 12 interceptions. He had 13 fumble recoveries, 9.5 sacks. And 2 defensive touchdowns. That's quite the stat line for a career, especially back in those days. I think he did 10 years, I believe, in total in the NFL. On August, I believe it was, he had 20 tackles in a game for the Longhorns. That's a pretty big thing. 20 tackles in a game back then. So again, the guy who put up good numbers. He did beat Roger Staubach for the national title back in '63. And of course, Roger at that time was with the midshipmen. So I thought that was a pretty good win for him as well. The biggest thing I think, one of the biggest things I think he's noted for, Logan, of course, you know this as well, was during a game against Joe Namath of all people at Alabama, top-ranked Alabama. They were on 4th and inches, Logan. They were up 21-17 with just a few seconds left in the game. And literally, this is like the game-defining moment. And they go up there. They get the game-saving stop. Game is over. And, of course, Texas goes on to win. But, honestly, 4th and inches, that's hard, Logan. You'd think that'd be, quarterback sneak, something like that. You're probably going to pick it up. But to get that stop and get the game win, that was huge back then. Like I told you, he got the Maxwell Award for being the best player. He got the Newt Rockne Award for best lineman. He was 7th in the Heisman voting. So he had quite the statistical and award-winning college career. I mean, this guy, he was the early Tim Tebow of his generation, right, back in those days, if you will. And, of course, then he went on to get NFL Man of the Year. But a couple of things I want to point out, even beyond his Atlanta days and beyond his Texas days, and when the guy was off of the field, what he did off the field, I thought was really impressive, Logan. He created the Tony Nobis Center in 1976. And what that did was it helped disabled youth and adults find work. And that's a good thing. He trained them up. He found them a job. And that's a big thing. You know, anytime you can put people, you know, who have disabilities in jobs of employment, that's a huge thing. He went on also to, I think he won the Joseph P. Kennedy Award for the Georgia Special Olympics and the work that he did with that. Logan, that's your neck of the woods, right? So,
yes, sir.
Tony Nobis, in all honesty, great representation of the University of Texas. He is from San Antonio, so great representation of San Antonio, and then also a great representation for the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta and all the things that he did and that as well. So I want to say a massive congratulations to the life accomplishments of one Mr. Tommy Nobis.
Yeah, man. Tommy Nobis is a guy who, you know, if you aren't a fan of the Falcons or the Texas Longhorns, someone who you might forget about in a sense, and it's kind of a shame because, like you said, he is one of the top linebackers. I mean, you could arguably say in college football history, right? The fact that this guy averaged nearly 20 tackles per game. You mentioned that game in 1963 when they beat Navy against Roger Staubach, who we just did a video on not too long ago. Jay, he was the only sophomore starter on that team. That's how good he was. Yeah. So obviously he was tremendous in college. You mentioned the game against Joe Namath, where they got the win there, a tremendous award. Also, like I said, picked up the Rockne Award, Outland Trophy, Maxwell Award. I mean, the guy was tremendous. Finished 7th in the Heisman voting that year. That's the one that Mike Garrett got the win in. Been on a bunch of magazines for how well he played. And then a funny story I found. I found that whenever this guy was drafted, right? So we see him on the Falcons, right? Obviously, he's known as Mr. Falcons. But, Jay, there was a league called the AFL back in the day. Yeah. And a team that you know very well, the Houston Oilers, selected Tommy Nobis. They picked him up, and they said, and so he was selected in the AFL draft by the Houston Oilers in 65. And a funny story is astronaut Frank Bowman, he went aboard Gemini 7, right? He sent a message back down to Earth. And Jay, that message said, there's a quote here, tell Nobis to sign with Houston. That is because Frank Borman's sons were ball boys for Houston. So he wanted Tommy to go play for Houston, but ultimately he signed with the Falcons in mid-December and was their first overall pick in 1966, in that draft. So that's where he became known as Mr. Falcon. Won the MVP award, or excuse me, the Rookie of the Year award that first year. And the crazy thing about that, Jay, Rookie of the Year gets voted to the Pro Bowl, and he had 294 combined tackles, which is still a record to this day. And it's unofficially the most tackles credited to one player in a season in the history of the NFL. 294. I mean, talk about a unit.
Yeah.
Golly.
Absolutely.
11 pro seasons, led the Falcons in tackles 9 times with the 5 Pro Bowls. And also, the thing, too, in 72, he went to the Pro Bowl. He had 2 knee surgeries that season. He still went to the Pro Bowl. I mean, there's not much better you could do. All-decade team in the 60s, obviously. Yeah. And Larry Zonka, you know Larry Zonka, a legend, tremendous running back for the Dolphins back in the day. A quote that he said, I'd rather play against Dick Butkus than Nobis. So,
and you know what interesting, Logan, is he has the same birthday as me. Me and him share a birthday together. September 20th, baby.
Look at that. Like you said, he went to the Falcons Ring of Honor. No Falcons ever worn his number after he retired. You mentioned his number is also retired at Houston, at Texas as well. That number 60 that he wore. And it's a shame, Jay. It's a shame he has not yet gotten to the Hall of Fame. Was a finalist in 2020 as well as in 2022, but for whatever reason, the committee in the league just did not get him in. Even though, like you said, this guy does a lot of great work off the field as well. It seems like from everything I've read about him that he seems to be just a stand-up guy. That he was throughout his career, that everyone respected him, everyone feared him on the field. and he's just an overall tremendous player. But it seems like an even better human being away from the game. Like I said, it's just unfortunate we did lose Tommy Nobis back in 2017 at the age of 74. So he lived a good long life, made a great impact on the game as well as away from the field, helping out with his charity there, as you mentioned. Tommy Nobis house. So Tommy Nobis Center, I should say, in 76, which is still going, still going strong. So a tremendous impact this guy's had overall on the game and just on life in general. So there's not much more we can say, man. Tommy Nobis, it's been a pleasure speaking about him today, reflecting on his life, both on the gridiron as well as helping out, people around the community in Atlanta and from other states as well. It's just been an absolute joy. And Jay, I appreciate you, man. Jay McLovin, my boy from the Elite Sports Entertainment Network, coming on the show, talking about Tommy Nobis, former linebacker, Mr. Falcon from the Atlanta Falcons, of course. Guys, check us out on the next live video coming up in just a moment. And if you enjoy the episode, like, follow, share, subscribe, Facebook, YouTube, and be sure to go download our podcast. We'll see you again on another